Have you ever bought a downloadable sewing pattern online and wondered to yourself, I wonder if this is really going to work? I recently bought a downloadable pattern from an Etsy seller. Let me tell you how it went. Hi, I'm Carrie, and I want to welcome you to So Darn Fun. Today we're going to review this sewing pattern that I downloaded, and I'm going to score it in 5 different categories, and at the end I'm going to give you a So Darn Fun score. Welcome to my studio today. If you haven't been here before, know that this is simply my honest opinion, and I want to give that experience and honest opinion to you. So this is the pattern I'm going to be reviewing. It is a pajama drop seat long john pattern, and you're going to ask, why would you want to do this? This is why. I have a couple pairs that I bought from Ready to Wear, and I bought them as a joke because they were those Christmas ones with the funny flap in the back, and I really ended up loving them. I liked how they didn't pull up in the back like a two-piece set might when I was sleeping, and the ones that I have are seriously wearing out, and I looked all over the internet to try to find a similar pattern that was an actual functional drop seat, and it was super hard to find, non-existent nearly. On Etsy, I found exactly the style I was looking for, and I decided to give it a shot. So I'm just going to go through each category. I'll try to give you information that I think would be valuable if you were considering a pajama pattern like this. The first category that I'm going to score in is the pattern price. So the pattern price for this seller was $9.95, and there are 2 views. One is a faux drop seat and the other one is an actual functional drop seat. That's the one that I wanted. So we've got 2 views there, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then look further. It also gives you a button placket option. One is the full-length button placket all the way down to the seam. The other one is a shortened version. Obviously, the long version is intended perhaps for a male, being that this is a unisex pattern. I liked that there was that option. There's also sizing from extra small to XXX large. So all told, it's 8 pattern sizes in this pattern. Also, for each size, there's 2 cutting lines on the sides where you can have a more fitted pajama or you can have it just a little bit looser. So it's kind of nice that they give you that option. You also get 3 different PDFs. One is a projector PDF. The other is like a large printer where you can send it to a printer and have them print it on a big piece of paper. And the other one, the one I use, is to print it at your home printer. And then of course, when you do that, you have to go through the time in the process to tape all the pieces together. So when I tape these together, I found them to go together with no problem. My printer paper is a little thick, so I had to fold back one line just so that I could get as exact a placement on the lines as possible. I just thought that it went together just as easily as other more known to me pattern companies that have downloadable patterns. So it went together very easily. Also, when they created these files, they created them with the ability to print out just the size you want. That's called layers. You can print layers. You can print 2 sizes at a time, or just pick whatever sizes you want printed at once so that you don't have lots of lines to be kind of wading through to figure out which is your cutting line. So it was very easy for me. I chose a medium. That tends to be my ready-to-wear size and my go-to size in most patterns. So I chose a medium and I just printed out medium. I wanted to make the pattern as it is to see how it fits me. So I felt that the price point for what you get, especially being that there's not any of this kind of pattern available out there. This is like the only one I found. I felt that it was a really good price point for the convenience of being able to download or print off at your convenience. And so I gave a 10, which is the most that it can get in this category. The instructions are in English, I might add. The seller also gives you permission to sell the garments that you create with the pattern. Not the pattern, of course, but the garments you create. And that's kind of nice to have that permission if that's something that you are seeking to do. So the next category is ease of assembly. So this is meant to grade how the pieces go together. If you're familiar with things like shawl collars or fancy places where you have to clip and then kind of twist, you know, and that might be a little bit more advanced kind of process for some people. So the ease of assembly to me means, do the pieces fit together, and is it simple? Is it really straightforward? There are no pattern acrobatics with this. The fabric is just, you just put the pieces together, you sew them pretty much. There's no fancy corners or clips or anything in the version that I made. I liked how the sleeves fit in. The sleeve is the same front and back. It's inserted while your garment is flat. Doesn't matter which sleeve goes on which side, and you just sew it in. Just very, very straightforward, easy. I liked the collar band assembly and the way that the little collar band was put into the body of the garment where it fit into the front placket. I just really liked the way that that was constructed. I thought it was really professional, very nice looking, easy to do, and seemed to be a little kind of top notch for a downloadable pattern, because sometimes I tend to think of them as being, you know, cheap and maybe cutting corners and doing things in a maybe questionable way. This looks really good, and so I really liked the way that that was designed. So all in all, the ease of assembly was super easy. I gave it a 10, the most it can get for this category. Moving on to the next one, clarity of instructions. This category is meant to reflect if I felt that the instructions were easy to follow, were clear, were in order, and was it easy for me my first time through sewing it without having to go back and recheck and question what was going on. So I do have a couple things to say about this category. First of all the instructions are given with full color pictures, step by step, and there's even a line that they've drawn. If there's any question about where your stitching line is supposed to go, they have drawn a line on there, which I thought was really nice. It was clear in that aspect. There is one step I would change, however, and that is on the back flap. It just kind of mentions almost like an afterthought. Oh yeah, after you sew the back flap to its lining, put a piece of interfacing along the top where the buttons are gonna go. And I thought it should be reversed, that you should fuse the interfacing first and then stitch the pieces together. So to me, it would have been a better progression to do that. As minor as it is, it seemed like it would have flowed better. That was in step 9 of the instructions in case you end up making this pattern. The next thing that I would add that wasn't in the pattern at all is where you put the buttons on the back body piece of the pajamas. It says to just put some pieces of interfacing under the buttons. And especially because I made mine with a lightweight brushed poly spandex, I felt that it needed quite a bit more reinforcement. And when I looked at my old jammies, I saw that there was an interfaced piece that was folded over and then stitched on the wrong side underneath where the buttons go. And so I did the same thing. I cut a 3-inch strip piece of the same fabric. I interfaced the whole thing. It was 3 inches by 12 inches. I folded it over and serged the edges, and I knew where my buttons were gonna go, and so I just placed that piece all straight across the back so that all the buttons would hit that nice reinforced area. So that's what I did. I went ahead and did that with mine. Of course, it is not absolutely necessary. And in all honesty, I would probably add this strip no matter what fabric that I would be using in the future. And of course, I don't want those all important buttons to be stripped off the back. They hold the flap up. Come on. Notably also, there's no button placement on the patterns at all. All the buttons down the front placket and the buttons along the back, it just basically says put this many buttons. On the placket, you have an option to place the 8 to 10 buttons, or 2.5 to 3 inches apart. It gives a suggestion, but it doesn't mark button placement, which means you have to figure it out yourself. Now that might not be a big deal, but I kind of find it nice to at least have a guide. So just take that into consideration. And speaking of buttons, this was a prime opportunity for me to go through one of my button containers. There's several, trust me. And I had in mind these awful, horrible buttons that I never in a million years would put on a garment that I would expect to show. I've had them for probably over 35 years. Back in the day when Clotilda was a mail order company and you could get this big thing of just random buttons that manufacturers didn't want to use anymore. I know why they didn't want to use these buttons, because they're just hideous. I wanted the white ones. I had a set of white ones and some black ones, but it turns out that I didn't have enough white ones. I only had like 3 big ones I could put on the back, but I didn't have enough smaller ones that I could put all the way down the placket. But I thought, what the heck? This is pajamas. I chose the black ones. I just wanted to use them. These little buttons needed to be used for something. I was really happy to use them on something that nobody's really ever going to see anyway. They worked great, and actually I like the little sparkle that they have on them because it kind of blends in with the ornaments that are on the fabric. If you have throwaway buttons, this is a really great place to use them. The other thing I want to mention is to pay attention to the seam allowances. They're different. There's a place where they're a 1/4 inch. There's a place where it's a 1/2 inch. So just pay attention. Not a big deal. You just gotta, read the directions and do what it says to do. There's also an error in step 22, and it's not a big deal again, but it's worth noting because I am picking this apart. I'm being super picky on purpose. The error is in step 22 for the full placket, the long placket view, that it says to skip ahead to step 26 because it skips over the portions for the short placket, obviously, but it should have said to skip to step 27. And if you're paying attention, you'll realize that there was just an error and just continue on to step 27, but it's just something that I noticed that wasn't consistent with the directions. So the clarity of instructions, though I want to, with all my heart, give it a 10, I have to take a little bit away. So I'm just going to give them a 9 for that instead of a 10, which is still pretty good. So I finally just brought the jammies in, and this pair is the pair that I just made with this pattern. The red and black one is my old pattern, just for comparison, so that we can see some of the differences in the two. So let's go to my next category, which I call fit out of the box. Now this, I realize, is kind of an unfair category because fit is different for everybody. And I am going to assume that a pattern is going to fit me and my physique and how I'm made. That's not true for everybody. So I guess I do this just so that you can gauge me, my physique, how you are built and how things fit you, and you can maybe see how they fit me and make adjustments as you would like a garment to fit you. So first of all, I'm 5, I don't know how tall I am, 5'7", 5'8", let's go see. Okay, so I'm 5'8". I know that I have a 34-inch inseam. And like I said before, there is the option to cut your pattern around the torso wider or slimmer for each size that's offered. And when I tried these on, the first thing that I noticed that I was overjoyed with was the length. Being a tall person, I'm used to everything being, a little bit short enough to be annoying. But let me show you. I've got them hanging on the same hook up there, on the same kind of hanger. And if I grab the leg and show you, this is the difference. Now, I know that my old set is made out of cotton and has probably shrunk over the last many years that I've had them. But I really, really love the length in this. And yes, I wore them last night. Yesterday happened to be my wedding anniversary, so yeah, that was fun. Anyhow, I tried them on. I sure hope it fits. The length was great. The thing that I really, really liked about the fit in these is the crotch area. Absolutely perfect. Actually, the neckline on my red ones comes up a little too high. I always leave the top button unbuttoned. The wider neckline on the Etsy pattern was so much more comfortable. I could button it all the way up using all those wonderfully horrible buttons, and it was just all kept together. I can't find anything negative to say. Everything on this pattern fit me so well. I didn't change a thing, but if you do need to change a thing, there are markings on the pattern, which I'll get on to talk about in the next category. The other thing that I really, really liked about the fit in these is the crotch area. See, the red ones are higher, and I've got a close-up here. I'll show you that the Etsy pattern has a gusset, so there's no seams that are going into uncomfortable places and binding or pulling up. It's so comfortable. It couldn't be any better. I was able to curl up in bed last night. I didn't have to pull the legs down. It was absolutely perfect and wonderful. So fit out of the box has to get a ding 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 10 because it was so spot on and wonderful. So the drafting for this pattern, very well done. Last category is called ease in making adjustments. Why do I have this one? Well, in some patterns there might be complicated pieces that it's more complicated to take in and know how to do certain adjustments. This one is really straightforward in that pretty much all you're going to need is to lengthen or shorten the torso or lengthen or shorten the legs. Know what your inseam is, measure the pattern. I measured the pattern and figured that it was kind of within the ballpark of what I felt I would want, and when I tried them on for the first time was blown away at how well it fit. So I had to make no adjustments. Most people might want to make the legs shorter if you're shorter than me, if you're shorter than 5'8", since now I know officially how tall I am. I don't know if it would fit me any differently if I had a fabric that was less stretchy than this. This is a double brushed poly spandex. It's stretchy this way and this way. The cotton used to be stretchy. It has some stretch, a little bit of stretch this way, stretch that horizontally for sure. So if I had to make any adjustments on this pattern, I know that it would be super easy peasy. And I'll show you here just really quick how you would make adjustments on those legs and the torso from the lines that they have on the pattern. So this is an example of the shorten and lengthen lines on these pajamas. First of all, at the very bottom here, it's got an option for a 31 inseam and a 29 inseam. And that 31 inseam fits me very well. I'm a 34 inseam, so it's plenty long. Here is the shorten, lengthen line for the legs. So what you would do is you would just fold it on that line if you needed it shorter. Fold it up or down, however short you want it. And on these little edges right here that stick out, you would just kind of even it out. Just draw a new line. If you need to lengthen them, you would cut along this line and then separate it the length that you need, and then again just sort of fill in. So this one I'm also going to give a 10. So that gives this Etsy pattern a total of 49. The Etsy seller is Peekaboo Pattern Shop, and mainly there are children's clothing on there, but you will find some women's dresses and some other things, a few items for grown-ups. I would not hesitate to try one of her other patterns. I'm so pleased with this one. This is definitely a pattern that I would make again, and already I'm thinking ahead to Valentine's Day, how it would be so cute done up in a heart fabric. If you haven't tried drop seat pajamas before, well, there's a reason that they've been around for a long time. If you decide to give this one a try, please let me know. Drop it in the comments below. See you in the next video. I have a duck. Her name is Buckbeak. She's almost 18 years old. She'll be 18 in April, and the months are starting to get just a little chilly here. So when they dip down to freezing, I give her a little bit of extra love and turn on a heat lamp at night because I just don't want her to have to work too hard to stay warm. Her sister went to ducky heaven a year ago, so she's actually a single duck. So I have a couple decoys out there to keep her company. I just had to go out there and turn off her heat lamp. I'll turn it back on again tonight so she can have a nice warm place to stay. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.